Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cupid Gone Rogue Subverting Tropes Writing Challenge. We are so excited that you are on. We have Becca on. Becca is a very prolific romance writer, and so I'm sure this month's challenge is really going to speak to her heart. Pardon the pun. It's early on a Saturday, you guys. But we are so excited to talk about our newest free writing challenge. And if you have not joined yet, this is the link here to sign up. That's 100% free to participate. And we are excited to hear what kind of subverted tropes you're going to throw at us today. So, we're going to talk a little bit about what this challenge is, what our judges are going to be looking for as you write your stories. And we've even got decided to be nice. We're going to go ahead and give you all the twists and requirements today. Now, over the next couple weeks, if you have questions about how to work some of these things into your story, we're going to be doing additional sessions on Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern in order to go into these in more detail. But we wanted you to be able to just jump right in without any real super crazy content twists this time. And yes, congratulations to our Novel 90 Challenge shortlist for the grand prize. I see a lot of love going on in the chat over there. We love our challenges, and that was really exciting to announce that. Next week, we're going to announce the finalists for Novel 90, so if you're in the AutoCrit community, stay tuned. But what is the Cupid Gone Rogue Challenge? Well, the Cupid Gone Rogue Challenge is a short story writing challenge, and it is going to be romance themed, but not in the way you might expect. So this challenge is focused on subverting romance tropes. Becca, do you want to tell us a little bit about what it means to subvert a trope exactly?
Sure. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. When you think about romance, you often think about different classic tropes, right? Like enemies to lovers, or I like to use the one of just one bed because that's one of my favorite. So in order to subvert a trope, it's kind of like a reversal, for lack of a better term. Sorry, I am still waiting for my coffee to kick in. So you need to understand the trope that you're using first, and then you need to turn it on its head. So I think things like, if you had, for example, friends, enemies to lovers, that turns into lovers to enemies. If you have just one bed, that turns into my personal favorite of too many beds, and so on and so forth. So you need to understand what's the core of the trope itself. What is it? What is the promise of that trope? And then you need to kind of switch it around or reverse it. But that's the explanation in a nutshell. Now, we do have a whole blog post about how to do this in our reverse tropes in fiction. So if you need some examples and some further explanation, I'm going to drop the chat to Catherine, or drop in the chat to Catherine the link, and she can share it out. This is a great resource for you as you start this. Excuse me, as you start this challenge. It can be funny, it can be serious, it can be weird. I love it when it's weird. There's a lot of different options here when we are reversing tropes or subverting tropes. So in our blog post, we wrote that reverse tropes are the literary equivalent of turning your favorite ice cream flavor upside down and serving it in a taco shell. And I like that explanation a lot. So you are taking the expectations of what you chose, and you are taking it to a different level. And remember, you need to be smart about your storytelling. This is not just reversing it and being different at every turn. You're taking established conventions and showing your readers that you're able to give them something fresh and challenge their preconceptions.
Yeah. And this is just a example list. Late blooming first love isn't always friends to lovers, although I do like that idea for a story. It could be someone who doesn't meet the person who becomes their lover until their 50s, 60s, or 70s, right? As opposed to second chance romance where they may have loved and lost once or multiple times before, right? So don't feel like you have to pick from this list. Again, this is just an example list. There are so many ones. If you go to Google and you Google popular romance tropes, there's tons of them you can go through. Find some of the ones that you like and twist it around backwards. And if you see a common trope and you're not sure what the backwards would be, there's a little help bubble in the bottom right hand corner of AutoCrit that you can click on and ask our team anytime. Be like, hey, what's the backwards of this? Now it's up to you to explain to us why you chose that. We're going to get to that in a minute and talk about how you implemented that in your story, though. You have to explain your trope as part of this challenge. Normally, for our challenges, we just want to see the finished product. But because we want to be part of this journey with you guys, there are 2 requirements for this specific challenge that are going to take place in the planning and the execution of the story as well. So at the top of the submission, this is not going to count towards your 2,500 words. In 1 or 2 sentences, please tell us the trope you chose to subvert and tell us how you meant to implement that. And so that is going to be one of the first things we look for when we open submissions for the challenge is that top 1 or 2 sentences. Here is my chosen original trope. Here is the subverted version and how I meant to use it. Now, there are some other rules at a glance. We're going to go through really briefly here. This is going to be a 2,500 word short story. So we had sort of our 1,000 word flash fiction in January, and we're working up into 2,500 words this time. That should be a story with a clear beginning, middle, and an end. We're going to talk a little bit about what the romance readers expect for beginning, middle, and end, because we do want this story to be clearly romance, even though we're flipping some of these tropes. Now, it can be dark. There can be some horror romance going on here. There can be some mystery elements. There can be historical romance. We're not being restrictive of which spin you want to put on your romance in any way. But it does need to clearly follow the romance conventions that Becca's going to speak to a little more later. And no, the 2,500 words should not include your title. There's going to be a spot in the top left corner. When submissions open, we are going to do a video here on the channel that shows you how to submit and what your submission should look like. So take a minute and come back and check on that the day submissions open. So what do we mean by we want it to be clearly a romance, Becca? Let's start with beginnings.
And I am on mute. Awesome. Okay. So we are looking at our genre conventions. Okay, so a breakdown of the common ones. So if you have a meet cute, that's the often charming or kind of funny first encounter between the main characters. It doesn't have to be funny. You can make it tragic. You can do whatever you need to do, but they have to meet. So that is our initial meet cute. You have the the focus of your romance needs to be on the romantic relationship or the relationship that's developing between your 2 main characters. This is what drives the plot forward in a romance. You have your initial attraction, so that's going to be coming in after your meet cute or your growing feelings. This is where there is that initial spark. That spark doesn't always have dark romance exists. That spark doesn't necessarily have to be positive spark, but they have to be brought together, something like that. So excuse me, I'm so sorry. Then we're moving into the middle. We're going to talk about what that tension is looking like. We want that delicious tension in our romance novel. We want internal conflict. We want external conflict. Remember, internal conflict is something that's happening to them themselves, within themselves. So internal. External conflict is something that's happening to them. outside of it. So you want to have all of that. You want to keep that tension high. You want to watch your pacing through here because you are bringing them up to this point. I'm so sorry. I keep coughing. Hold on just a second.
Yeah, and so we're looking for that internal and external tension here. The one of the things that brings romance readers to the genre is not just will they end up together, but how it's making the characters grow as they go along.
Absolutely. So the ending, it does, most genre romance writers will tell you that as much as you might want to do something wild and have them like not end up together, the genre convention for romance states that they either have a life together. It's either happily ever after or happily for now. But you need to have them end up together. Now, I want to make a couple notes too, because I know I've had questions prior to this about what it means to subvert some of these plot points and how that relates to heat level. You can keep you can write a spicy story. That's completely fine for this challenge, but by taking a spicy trope and turning it not spicy, that is not necessarily subverting the trope. You can have all of these different classic romance tropes, and you could have them completely closed door or sweet or clean, or you could have them extremely spicy. So by the heat level of your story does not subvert your trope. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like you can have all of these tropes, give or take, as spicy or as closed door fade to black as you want. It's the actual trope itself that changes, right? It's no longer enemies to lovers, it's lovers to enemies, whether that's clean or spicy. We want that distinction there. Yeah. And then we do want to see a tiny glimpse of either a promise that happily ever after or happy for now is going to last long term, or a smidge of something after the happily ever after, happy for now, right? Because this is a fully contained story, it should not be your first chapter or an excerpt from a bigger piece. We are only going to meet these characters this one time. So that's something we are going to look for as well.
That doesn't mean I see in the chat we have a question of can we line up all the spices and then make it as bland as Pedialyte? I mean, if you can successfully pull that up, put these people in an extremely spicy situation and then make it fall flat on its face, I think that would add a lot of potential hilarity to your story. And I am not at all opposed to you doing that. Just make sure that you are also paying attention to the trope that you're following.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely want there to still be a story.
And it needs to be a romance. So that is, make sure that they are still falling in love in some way or following those basic conventions there. So
we are not expecting nor requiring there to be on the page intimacy in these stories. If you feel like that is called for in the story, you can include it. If you feel like it's not called for and it's just a sweet romance, we're fine with that. We will not be disqualifying stories for including it or for leaving on the page steam out. With that being said, please keep YouTube guidelines in mind since we are planning to read our finalists. Make sure basically that there's no intimacy between minor children under 18 or non-consensual intimacy if possible. All right, now we talked a lot about beginnings, middles, and ends here. If you do not feel comfortable with this aspect, maybe you're trying romance for the first time, or maybe you would like a stronger foundation for your story, we are going to offer a romance plot craft workshop in February. It's coming up very soon on the 2nd, so tomorrow. And you can sort of get a head start there. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link in the chat, and then we're going to talk about the required twists for the challenge. And I believe, Becca, you're the one leading the Heartbeat of Romance Plotcraft workshop, so this is going to be going deeper into those nuts and bolts.
Yes, I'm so excited for this. I just finished my my deck actually, and so this is going to be an interactive class. This is not going to be me yapping at you about everything that needs to go into your romance plot. We're going to be doing while we go along, so that you can use this as a testing ground for your own plots. You can get some insight. We're going to be chatting with each other about what makes a great romance plot and all of these different tips and tricks that I've learned over the last 15 years. Keep in mind, I write almost entirely romance, and 80 plus books in, this is what I've gathered on how to make your romance plot fun, how to make it sexy, how to make it work and have those swoony moments and the what the heck did I just read? I have to keep reading moments. So we're going to be putting all of those things into this plot craft workshop. And I will make sure that I do not cough all the way through it. But we're really excited, and I would love to see you there.
And we've got some clarification questions that I'm going to go ahead and knock out, and then we're going to talk about the twists. So for beginning, middle, and end, one of the things that makes romance stand apart is that promise of the couple staying together in the future, that we are rooting for something that is lasting. It's our fantasies basically being written out for us. So when we say a hint of something to happen in the future, we mean more of that promise, something that solidifies that this really is the end result for these characters. It should not be a blatant cliffhanger. So we shouldn't see them get down on one knee and propose and then that be the end of the story. We want to know whether or not they say yes and end up together, right? Becca, how about this one?
Yeah. I would actually say that we're subverting these tropes. So if you can have a bittersweet ending. You can have things be they where it's they're ending in a kind of state of flux, as long as it's very clear that that is their journey end, and that they have that kind of happily for now. Like if you're doing instead of a marriage of convenience, you're doing a divorce of convenience, then they're not going to end up traditionally together at the end. If the whole plot story is that they're divorce of convenience for whatever it is that they did, then they're not going to obviously end in a marriage type relationship. However, they might still have their connection, right? They divorced, two people in love divorced for a reason, so that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not together. So how you navigate that is up to you. I also saw another question that said, that does it have to include spice? Absolutely not. You can write this completely sweet if you want to. You can write this incredibly spicy and see what we come up with there if you want to as well, or somewhere in the middle. Just remember, you have 2,500 words, and it needs to make sense. You can't just throw a spice scene in there and be like, done.
Yeah. Don't sacrifice key plot elements for a spice scene. If you can't fit both in, we'd rather have the plot than to have the spice.
But also I want tension between these characters, and you do not need to necessarily make it super spicy to still have that tension. I have read sweet romance that has absolutely delicious on the page tension and chemistry between their characters, because you're focusing on their interactions. You're focusing on what they want. So get to know your characters, get to know what they want, their motivations, subvert that a little bit, and make sure that they're growing on their little path.
Yeah. So let's go into our twist. So for the twist, and don't worry, this is going to be available right here at the same link here on YouTube. You don't have to scribble so much. Let your hand rest a second. We are requiring 2 twists in this challenge. And as I said before, we're going to be going deeper onto what these mean over the next 2 weeks. The first is you must use an AutoCrit beat sheet in the story builder. And in order for you to be able to do that, we are actually unlocking this, because it's typically a pro member only perk. We are going to unlock it exclusively for challenge participants. So even if you are not an AutoCrit Pro member, you do not have to sign up and pay for a membership unless you want other perks beyond what you need for the challenge. Everything you need for the challenge will be provided for you. So we, as we said before, want to see your process going into this challenge and not just the finished work. Whether you plan the story before you write it or you plan the story after you write it as part of your reverse outlining process for your editing, we would like to see the completed version in that story builder. There's a romance specific beat sheet in there, and that's going to help you sort of stay on point with the genre conventions for the challenge. So we are going to do another session about that just so you guys can see us pull it up, see us work through it. But right now on our YouTube channel, there's already a video about planning stories in AutoCrit that will walk through our builder. So you can go check that out in our AutoCrit 101 replay if you want to get ahead of the game here, or you can check it out for yourself and send us questions if you have them. Becca, you have anything to add about the beat sheet for the story builder?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And the nice thing about the beat sheet is if you are not used to using beat sheets, like I don't use them all the time. The story builder is there to help you do that. So you're going to you're not having to, like, we're not giving you a download, for example, of a workbook or something, and you're having to write all of this out. You can fill it in. The story builder is extremely powerful, and you can experiment with your prompt or your idea that you are going to make happen. We also have a short story beat sheet as well, which would be acceptable.
Yeah.
Just keep the romance there. Remember, this is a romance story. And I
Of
am going to
course.
be strict about I'm not strict about what tropes you use. As long as you can explain it, I am open to whatever type of, if you decide to go to a niche romance trope, that's fine, as long as you can explain what it is and how you subverted it. That is what, and the romance is present in the story, those elements. Knock yourself out. But I am going to be strict about whether or not it is discernible as a romance.
Yeah. So there is a short story beat sheet, but the romance beats are more or less the same whether you're writing a full novel or you're writing a 2,500 short story. So you can run it through romance just to make sure you have the meet, cute, and other elements. If you'd like to keep everything else on the short story beat sheet, that's fine. Kara, there are a lot of us that don't use beat sheets at all till the book is done. So we don't mind whether you use it beforehand and it ends up going off and becoming its own thing, or whether you use it afterward as part of the editing. We will accept either one as long as it is completed on the file. When you submit your file, your builder will be submitted with it, so we can see what you had planned out as part of the process. Okay, that was the first twist. The second twist is your story must be written in past tense. We are going to push ourselves outside of our comfort zones a little bit. Romance can be written in any tense. I'll be very clear about that here. First person romances are common. We know that, but it is a challenge, and it wouldn't be a challenge if we didn't have something technical to work inside of, right? So everything except your dialogue, which even in past tense should be written in present tense, everything except your dialogue should be written in past tense. Your narrative should be written in past tense. In order to help with this, we are going to open up for free for you guys in the Writer's Desk again, our tense consistency report. So that way you can run your book, or I'm saying your book, your story, your 2,500 word story. You can run that through the tense consistency report and go down the list of present tense things and make sure they're only occurring inside dialogue and not past tense. And we're going to talk a little bit about writing in past tense as well later on in this challenge. And I sympathize 100%. I see the oh my's here. I write first person by default, and I have started trying to branch out into third person. And what I've found that it really does for me is improve the level of immersive description I write in my world building and my character development. Because when you're in first person, you get a little bit of a pass to introduce these things as the main character comes across them. So having to zoom out and look at that from third person really helps you grow the ability to write descriptively, write immersively for your readers, and craft that backstory, right? The story building section in AutoCrit is in the Writer's Desk. Let me go ahead and share my screen very briefly, and I'll show you where you can go. We're not going to get into details about all of that today. But all right, here we are on the AutoCrit homepage. Every single participant for the challenge will receive a free access to AutoCrit through the challenge. So you're going to click on the writer's desk. And then from here, let me zoom out because my goodness, I am zoomed in way too far. Okay, here we go. That's better. So from here, if you have written part of your story outside of AutoCrit, you'll need to bring it into the system by either copying and pasting it into a blank document or by uploading an unformatted docx, txt, or rtf file. Ideally, you'll be writing your story from scratch here. So you'll click Continue Working. And then in the Analysis tab, we are unlocking the fiction, or not the Analysis tab, I'm sorry, you guys, the Planning tab, the Fiction Story Builder. You'll click New Fiction Story Builder Idea, and this whole builder should be unlocked for you. This is where you can put your story's premise, you can plan out your world building, you can plan out your characters, who the protagonist is, if there's an antagonist, relationship characters. And then down here under beat sheets is where you're going to choose romance to get an idea of where in the story these different romance points take place, or short story, as long as you also remember to include that meet cute and some other things there as part of your inciting incident beat. This is the section we would like filled out in order to qualify when you submit your story for the challenge. And because it's linked here to your file, if you write your story right here in the system as well, when it's time to submit your file for us, it will all be together nice and neat in one little package. So again, we are going to be looking for the romance specific beats, but it is okay if you incorporate those into the short story beats as well. If you don't know what these beats are, there's a little information bubble to the right-hand side of each one, and you can hover over it for a reminder or a tip about what would typically be in that spot. We are going to be writing it's all going to be in past tense. Becca, first person past, okay? Yep, first person past is fine.
You can pick your POV, but it has to be in past. I would highly recommend maybe not doing something like...
You have to be really careful about first person past. It's one of my, it's one of the hardest executed besides third person present. First person past has a tendency to read very reporting like instead of immersive. If you think about why we like first person because we are there in their head. We see what they see, we feel what they feel, we know what they know, all real time as it's happening. And then when you start doing past tense, if you're not careful, you can start talking to us like we're people reading your diary or something. And it just doesn't hit with the same level of immersion as if you had switched to third person past in order to have a narrator give us that view of the story. So as long as you don't have every sentence beginning with name got up, name did this, name went to the car, name got in the car and went into Starbucks and got a coffee, name took their coffee and went into the office. Okay, that's not great. That's not what we're looking for. Try to keep it immersive and in that strong first person level of description if you're going to do that.
I would recommend maybe not trying to do this in like second person. That's difficult on the best of days. I have very rarely see that executed well. And I think you're asking for an absolute migraine of a writing headache there to attempt to do that. So I would keep it in first or third.
Yeah, you can have dual POV. Remember, though, that you only have 2,500 words, and splitting your POVs means introducing us to two characters twice, giving us the middles of two characters twice, giving us the resolution of them as a couple, and that's going to double the amount of word time that is on the page for each of these people, right? So we're not going to say, no, you can't, but just consider what is going to serve your story best with the words. and focus on getting all of those plot elements that we're looking for and focus on that trope and how it's worked into your story, that is going to be the heaviest weighted thing. The characters and how they grow through that is part of it, but we are mostly going to be looking for making sure you've hit all those plot points, right? Yeah, so the one with the most to learn or lose, for sure. Yes, we will be releasing the replay of this right here at the same link. First person should always be deep POV, 100% of the time. Unless you're writing something that takes the form of purposeful blog entries and letters like Dracula, it should be deep POV. That's the whole point of writing first person, is that we are in their head the entire time. So yes, if you write first person, we will expect deep POV. All right. Any other questions as we move along? We are going to talk about the timeline here, and that's the last thing for our conversation this morning. So here is the timeline overall. Today, the challenge is beginning. You can go ahead and start writing today. We are going to be back next week talking about how to write past tense in your prose. We will include first and third person as part of that presentation. We will not be talking about second person in that presentation. On the 15th, we're going to come back and walk through beat sheets, specifically how to use them once the story has been written in a reverse outlining format, which is what a lot of us may do because these short stories can just grab our inspiration and we just plug right on through. And we're going to talk about how you can incorporate those romance beats into your short stories. On the 22nd, submissions will open at 11:59 a.m. Eastern time. That's Eastern US time. And then submissions will close on the 25th at midnight. So 11:59 p.m. Eastern time on the 25th is when the stories have to be submitted. Please don't wait till the last minute. In order to keep this a fair judging, these judgings are blind. And that means we do not want to have to receive emails because then we'll know who you are and that wouldn't be fair. So we're not going to be accepting submissions via email for that reason or via private message to one of our instructors. So please take the time to go in, get it done, and our support team will be available if you have questions when it comes to submissions. We're going to walk you through how to do that step by step, and then we'll be here for you if you need us. On the 24th, on the 24th, goodness, I'm ahead of myself. On March 4th, we're going to announce our winners and finalists here on YouTube and give out all the lovely prizes. Okay. Any questions?
I will also put a plug in is that challenges are more fun with friends. So bring your friends into this one. If you have people that, excuse me, if you have people in your life that write romance or people in your life that just like subverting tropes or people that are like, I have a weird story idea, bring them into the challenge. This is a free challenge for them to stretch those writing wings, and we'd love to have them. Registration remains open. So yes.
No, 2,500 words does not include explaining the trope or the beat sheet. But we do want to limit it to 2 sentences, like 1 or 2 sentences max. I chose this trope and I subverted it by doing XYZ. If you get into a page to 2 pages worth of explaining your trope, your story might not have been conveying it as strongly as you'd hoped. We just want an idea for where you were going. Let the story show us originally how you ended up actually carrying it out. Yep, it's 100% free to join, and the link is on the page, as Becca said. If you're watching on YouTube, it's also down in the description box, and you can just scroll down and click it. Please like this video if you're excited for the challenge, and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss the challenge updates. We will be emailing out this list of requirements to people who register for the challenge, but you can only get the list if you are registered. So please go ahead and register so that you can get the challenge emails and be eligible for the prizes.
And for my folks that have been in my self-publishing and marketing classes, this is the kind of example. If you decide to write something odd from one of your existing worlds, this is a perfect example of a reader freebie that you could use in marketing later if you decide to use characters that are already established in your world, whatever you write in. This could be a very funny thing that you send out to your newsletter subscribers. This could be, you could even turn this into a short story lead magnet type style of thing. So think of that as you're writing. This could also just be, you don't have to always be thinking about that. This could also just be something weird and fun that you want to write. Like, I'm not putting pressure on you, but there are ways to make this challenge also have dual purposes in your writing life. We have another question here that says, is it a short story challenge or a script? It is a short story challenge.
Yeah, it needs to have a narrator. So there needs to be more than just dialogue or bullet point, so-and-so enters the scene. This is an actual prose challenge. So try to stretch those creative muscles a little bit. Now you can, if you like writing screenplays, you can throw together a screenplay and then expand that. Make that dialogue part of your story and then expand on your world building, include the action, add some showing narration and things like that. However works for you with your planning process is fine. But the actual submission, we are going to be looking for a narrator.
I'm so excited.
Another
This is
question,
like my favorite
just to
thing.
clarify on whether there has to be a happy ending for them together. Do they have to be together romantically at the end, Becca?
Well, now I'm torn because traditionally, yes, in some manner of speaking. Like, I don't want you to just be like, the subversion is that they're now platonic, because that is not what we're going for. If you can, I guess, if you can explain how there's still feelings there, but they're not together for whatever external reason, that's fine. It can be bittersweet. It can be like the ripped apart, but the longing. If you want to make this super angsty, please go for it. But I would like there to still be some clarity that they are, if not actually like traditionally together, they're like emotionally together.
Yeah, I think it's important to
Or
clarify here that the purpose
yeah.
of a trope is to give us a theme that we're following through the course of the story. It's not changing the outcome of the story per se. So let's say I had enemies to lovers and I flipped that to lovers to enemies. It's not going to replace the fact that this is a romance and the whole point of this story is to see this couple end up together or end up feeling for each other, even if they're separate, and a happy for now kind of thing at the end. It's telling me that, hey, if you read my story, I am going to give you a story where they start out lovers and become enemies, and then they still have feelings for each other, sort of in the end in some way, right? More than one bed instead of the one bed trope. All right, we're not going to have forced proximity. They don't have to share a bed anymore, but I'm still being promised them ultimately having feelings for each other at the end and getting together, even in a poly situation or reverse harem situation. Bring on the reverse harems, my fellow RH writers. That is just going to set up the promise ultimately of our theme is what we're looking.
Yeah. And you can have, I mean, it's a very powerful way to do the I hate that I love you type style of things with your enemies. Like, you can put some of those darker elements in, or that like emotional eternal conflict, the like I can't believe, like the constant going back to an ex type of style of thing like that. I hate that I still have feelings. Toxic love can be something that we still explore in this challenge. Just keep it romantic.
Yeah, absolutely, Tony. Love that point here. All right, everybody. So we have taken up a lot of your time this Saturday morning, but we're excited. We're kicking this off with you guys. We want to see all the cool twists on the tropes. If you have questions as we go along, please reach out to us. We are available via the help bubble, via email to support@autocrit.com. You can chat with us in the community. You can come to one of our romance clubs or one of our romance events and hang out with us a little bit. Whatever we can do to help you along this process, we are happy to help with. So good luck, and we will see you guys on the next stream. Take care, everybody.
Don't forget,
Bye.
we have AutoCrit 101 later this afternoon, so
Oh,
come back
yes.
and see us for that. I dropped a link in the chat for you,
There you
Catherine.
go. Our AutoCrit 101 for line editing, using AutoCrit to line edit your stories. Okay, everybody. Bye.
Bye.